labor and delivery. So I have been in labor and delivery for, I think, like 4 weeks now. So obviously I haven't experienced certain things, but I kind of have an idea of what the workflow is like compared to postpartum. So I'm going to touch on those things. This is part 1. I'll do part 2 maybe by the end of my orientation when I'm on my own, maybe a couple months after being on my own. And then I'll do part 3 once I hit a year of experience in labor and delivery. First things first, I love it. I was really scared that I was going to go into it because I love postpartum too. Like, I was so comfortable and in love with the work that I was doing there. But I just knew that I wanted to try out labor and delivery. That's like originally what I wanted to do. Other than ICU, labor and delivery was right next to that choice. So I knew I had to do it. So when the opportunity came up, I jumped on it. But I'm going to tell you right now, the week before I started orientation in labor and delivery, and that first week, I was so anxious. I was so anxious and worried and intimidated because I know all these people. I've been working with these people for almost a year now, and I just was like, man, I don't want to make a bad impression. I don't want to disappoint my postpartum people. I don't want to disappoint these people in labor and delivery and have them look at me a certain way. When you work in an all-women unit, it gets like, people talk. I mean, I feel like people talk anyways when you're in a career like nursing, where, especially night shift, where you have all night, and sometimes you have downtime, so you talk about stuff. And, you know, women, gosh, we're a piece of work sometimes, but we talk about people or each other sometimes, and I think that should change. I try to not do that. I try to not get pulled into those situations, but it happens. So you just don't want to be talked about, this and that. Those were all my fears, right? Like, I'm not going to get certain things. It's going to be so different than postpartum, which there's parts of it that really are different. But I was just really scared about, how's this all going to go? Like, am I going to cry every day after work? Because there's people who've told me that happened. Am I going to just go into this and be like, wow, this is not what I want at all? Or I got to give this a year. I don't want to give this a year. So those were all my fears going into it. After my first week and after my first couple of deliveries, I was like, yep, I'm sold. Sorry, postpartum. I love you. I'll probably come back to you one day, years from now, but I really like it. I love it. I absolutely love it. And let me tell you why. Here's some things I love about postpartum. Babies. I miss the babies. I mean, in labor and delivery, you do see babies, but you only get to see them for about 2 hours after they're delivered. I would love to, once I'm very experienced in labor and delivery, just always be the baby catcher. Just be like, I don't need patience. I'm just going to catch the babies all night, or at least do that once a week, because I love it. I just love babies. I love working with them. I love holding them and squishing them. I love them. That's the biggest thing I miss about postpartum, is working with the babies. So that's one thing I love about postpartum. I love the constant, like, okay, love and don't love the constant busyness. Sometimes in labor, you'll get a patient and you'll have like 8 to 10 nurses on, even if you only have 2 or 3 patients. And here's why. You never know what's going to come in. We had a night where we had 4 patients and about, 5 nurses hanging around. And by the end of the night, everybody had a patient. We had 9 deliveries, and it got crazy. So if we didn't have all those nurses hanging around to help with the 5 deliveries that were literally back to back to back to back, because you have to have more than one nurse. You have to have a primary nurse, a baby nurse, a OB tech, a doctor. That's like the basics that you need, right? Not to mention if you're the primary nurse, you want to have at least another nurse in the room to document, to yell out times, all of that. That's like the ideal situation. But when you're busy, like we were this one night, it's like you at least need a primary nurse and a baby catching nurse. And if you have, let's say, which we pretty much had, and then you have to recover. Sorry, I forgot that. You have to recover that mom and baby for 2 hours after that. And ideally, you want one nurse for the mom and one nurse for the baby. But if you have a night that we had the other night where we seriously had like 4 deliveries within an hour of each other, that's a lot of nurses and resources taken up. So yeah, you need extra nurses on. Just in case it blows up, which it blows up a lot at my hospital. So you'll have nights where you have extra nurses on, 2 patients. So you're pretty much just waiting around all night to get a patient. Sometimes they'll send you home early, sometimes they won't, just because, like I said, you never know what's going to happen. So I do miss that part of postpartum. Like, if you have, whether you have 2 patients or 3 or 4, 4 couplets, won't miss that. You always have something to do. You can always help a mom with breastfeeding. Always have to, every 4 hours go check, make sure their pain's good, and at least every 8 hours, do vital signs and weights and baths and all that good stuff. So I do miss the constant all night busyness, but I like the busyness of labor and delivery more, if that makes sense. Like, when you're busy in postpartum, it's more tedious and task-based, and getting things done on a timeline. When you're busy in labor and delivery, it's like, delivery's happening, this is happening, bam, bam, bam. Like, it's just way faster and faster paced, and it makes the night go by really, really fast. Third thing I miss about postpartum is my coworkers. I had a really good team. Miss them all a lot, and I miss just the coworkers and the people I worked with. But I always, like, on my lunches and stuff, go over and say hi to them. Going into the differences, which I've already talked about a few, between postpartum and labor and delivery, because I'm not trying to make this video super long. I talked about how the level of busyness is different. If you have 8 couplets, it's a lot different than having 2 patients on labor and delivery. But both are just as busy, and some of my postpartum nurses will not believe me, but it is. It's just as busy. The only difference is with labor, and I like this a lot, is it's a lot less charting. You're charting a lot more frequently because you have to chart the fetal strip every 30 minutes, but it's literally like 2 sections of charting. And so you have a lot more time for patient care and interacting with the patients and all of that. Postpartum, a lot more charting. You have to chart on mom and baby. There's certain things like you have to chart like head to toes, fundal assessments, baby's vital signs, baby's full assessments, at least 2 a night. There's just a lot more to chart. Labor and delivery, charting is more frequent, but it's not as much tedious charting, if that makes sense. When you're charting on baby, you're charting the baby's heart tones, like the fetal strip. So I like it that way. Like, you can get your charting done, you get caught up with your charting, and then you have 30 minutes to go and focus on your patients, or an hour or 2. So I like that. Another difference between labor and delivery and postpartum is obviously you don't have the baby. So if you're a postpartum nurse and that just stresses you out and you like just working with the moms, then maybe labor and delivery is for you, because you are dealing a lot more with just the mom, helping her through the birthing process. You are watching the baby on the monitor, but literally they're still inside the mom. So physically, especially if you have a baby nurse to recover your baby afterwards, a lot less interaction with the baby. So if the baby stressed you out, maybe think of labor and delivery. Another difference is that postpartum is much more management of symptoms after the birth, and helping mom kind of transition and baby transition into now you're together, making sure they recover well from the labor. Some of the emergencies would be like managing a postpartum hemorrhage, infection, preeclampsia, making sure no one has a seizure from eclampsia. And I don't want to say anything, but I feel like the emergencies in postpartum, it's either the mom or the baby. Like, either something's going wrong with the mom or something's going wrong with the baby. It's not, this is going wrong with the mom, so it's going to affect the mom and the baby. You know what I mean? In labor and delivery, if mom has a seizure, if mom has an infection, if mom has gestational diabetes, if mom has preeclampsia, those are all things that can affect the baby. So now you have two patients that you're having to worry about and manage to make sure that both of them are saved. It's a little stressful. And postpartum, if something's going wrong with the mom, someone can kind of take over, and like dad or a family member can take care of the baby. And you can just worry about the mom right then. Someone else can do your baby vital signs if those are due, but you kind of can just focus on the mom. There are nights, I will give credit, that there are nights in postpartum where something's wrong with the mom and the baby, and that is very stressful. So that's similar to labor and delivery, but you can see the baby and you can know what's going wrong instead of looking at a monitor and now the baby's heart rate is dropping and what is going on, what's making this drop. So I would say in postpartum, it's more managing symptoms and figuring out, you know, kind of like boom, boom, boom. Like mom's having a hemorrhage, here's what we do, which hemorrhage, postpartum labor and delivery, same thing, same kind of scenario. So the only difference between that is like sometimes the hemorrhage can be worse at the right after the birth, or it can't, who knows. But in postpartum, you kind of, they're independent of each other. If something's going wrong with the mom, usually, you know, it's not going to affect the baby. Whereas in labor and delivery, you got two people to think of if something's going wrong with mom. So a lot more critical thinking in the way of that situation where you're like, okay, well, if this is happening to mom, then what's happening to baby? Or if the baby's fetal strip is showing this, then what in mom? Like, is it her blood flow? Is it the baby's cord? Is it head compression? Is it mom has preeclampsia, so the baby's, you know, her blood pressure is so high that the baby's blood flow is being cut off? So you kind of have to like piece things together and do interventions and then see what works. I will say that if you're an adrenaline junkie and you like high, crazy, fast situations, labor and delivery is for you. I've never had so many adrenaline rushes in 1 week in my life. Like, and I don't know, maybe I'll get jaded one day or I'll get used to it, but every delivery afterwards, I'm like, whoo, I am pumped. Like, wow, that was great. You know, whether it's, I had a mom who pushed for 5 hours and then a shoulder dystocia, and it was just like, oh my gosh, like, it was stressful, but the adrenaline high is just crazy. Or you have a really good delivery and it's like a beautiful baby and a mom and it's beautiful to watch, and it's just, your energy is just so high. But you do crash after, so you better hope you have another patient or something to kind of like keep you like awake, or go drink some coffee because you get that adrenaline high and then you like come down off of it. So that is one thing. Whereas in postpartum, it's a little bit, if you don't have a hemorrhage or anything like that, chiller, where you just kind of like all night are just watching mom and baby, managing their symptoms. It's a lot of, I will say that postpartum is more time management, very time management, very, you know, schedule centric, whereas labor and delivery is kind of like, all right, what's going on now? Just like jumping from one thing to another, figuring out things, and then you do have to manage your charting and all that. But as far as time management goes, there's not like a list of tasks to do. You just kind of have to have in your head, if this happens, this is what I'm going to do. Yeah, you have some meds that are like scheduled and all of that, but it's not a bunch of scheduled meds. It's not a bunch of like, oh, every, you know, this many hours. You do have to do vitals every 4 hours and fetal strip, but it's not as like tasky as postpartum. That's the only way I can describe it. Postpartum, all night you're busy with like, okay, we're going to do this at this time, this at this time, this at this time. It's much more task associated. Lots of critical thinking going on, but it's more driven by what time frames are going on. Like, is my mom a C-section and she's 24 hours post-op? Is my mom a vaginal birth and she's, you know, it's been 8 hours or whatever, so now it's time for a vital sign check? Is my baby 24 hours? Labor and delivery, it's not like that. It's like, what is going on at this moment right now? And like just kind of going with the flow of the night. That's the best way to describe that big difference between postpartum and labor and delivery. Time-wise, as far as your schedule goes in the night, completely different. And here's an example. when I was in postpartum, I had like a report sheet, and each patient, I would set a schedule up for them for the night. Like, this is who I'm going to see first, and I'd set their schedule up, second, third, oh gosh. And if I had that fourth couplet, I was like, I'm going to be running all night. Labor and delivery, you have a cheat sheet that tells you like the patient's history and all that, and like that's your report sheet. You don't really have a report sheet or a brain that you're carrying in your pocket all night. You're kind of just like, you just kind of know, because you only have 1 or 2 patients, like, okay, like, if this patient's GBS positive, their antibiotics due in 4 hours. And like, I made a little list the other night just to keep me on track with like those kind of things, but pretty much you're just going with the flow all night. So I do like that part of it. Trying to think, another thing I would say, postpartum is team-based when something's going down. Like, you have a hemorrhage, you have something going wrong with a baby, everyone's there to help you. But it's very, like, you don't have that all the time. So it's kind of like you doing your own thing throughout the night, and if you need help, you call someone, but most of the time, like, you're good on your own. Labor and delivery, teamwork. Like, that's my favorite part, is the teamwork. Something goes wrong, bam, you pull your emergency cord, everyone's in your room, everyone's helping you. We had, super scary, I had a patient who, Monday night, we had a shoulder dystocia, which is when the baby's shoulder or arm, try not to touch my face, but my nose is running, gets stuck on the pubic bone or the sacrum of the mom, and the head is out, but the body's stuck, and it can be very dangerous for babies, depending on how well the baby's oxygen reserve is when they come out. It's stressful, man. I could see it on everyone's faces, the fear, because it sometimes has bad outcomes. Here, do that. Super classy. And it was like, we were just telling this mom, you have to push, because when a baby is so big, they can't do a vacuum delivery, and when you're at a certain point, there are interventions that are more helpful and faster than going back for a C-section, and can be a better outcome. So you do all these interventions first before even going to C-section. So you have situations like that where something's going wrong, your team is in there, someone's helping you writing down all your documentation, someone's writing down times, someone's, helping, grabbing you meds, someone's got your baby, NICU's there, got your baby. People are just like asking what you need. The doctor's like directing you. It's such a teamwork environment. And I remember my first couple of deliveries, I had no idea what to do. So I was just watching everyone. It's like, dude, like everybody knows what to do. Even if someone's not telling them what to do, everybody's doing something, and it's just like click, click, click. As you can tell, I love that. So that's really a really cool part of labor and delivery. Postpartum, if you like working on a team, but also being more independent, that's like it's a good area for you. If labor and delivery, much more team-centric, everybody helps each other out. Even if like you have an admission or something, someone will walk in your room and grab like your fluids and start your IV while you're doing all the forms and stuff, as long as it's not a busy night. If it's on a busy night, you're kind of sinking or swimming, but overall, everybody helps each other, and I really like that part. If you have any postpartum and labor and delivery experience, and you want to put your opinions or thoughts into this video, or just say what you like between the two, comment down below. I hope that this kind of gave you guys a snapshot. It's only my 4th week, so I don't know everything, obviously. I can't wait until I'm like 3 years into this and a little bit more experience, but so far I really, really enjoy labor and delivery, and I think I'm staying there for a long time, if not forever. So thank you for watching this video. Like, comment, subscribe, whatever YouTube people say. And thanks for being so patient with me. I know I'm taking forever to put out videos, but with this quarantine, y'all might be seeing more. So tune in next time. Bye, you guys.